So just to set some context for you, right? Let me ask you these questions. Now do this as a quick like a rapid fire. What do employees want at the workplace? Not just women. What do employees want at the workplace? Quick rapid fire, everyone. Go ahead.
A safe space where we feel valued.
Safe space. Anyone else?
Growth.
Growth. What else?
Trust.
Trust. Safe space and trust. Okay, what else?
Equal pay and equal opportunities.
Okay, equal pay, equal opportunities. Okay.
Recognition.
Okay.
Value.
Okay, growth and value. We want value and we want growth and we want recognition. Growth, value, recognition. Okay, anyone else?
Financial independence.
Pardon?
Financial independence or
Yes.
monetary.
Yes, we want monetary rewards, right? Monetary rewards or monetary, yeah, go ahead, what else?
Friendly work environment.
Pardon?
Friendly work environment.
Okay, we can call it friendly or, conducive work environment, right? Conducive work environment. Okay. Are all of these very women-centric? These are all any employee would want, right? Safety, growth, value. This might be a little women-centric, equal play for equal opportunities, right? Might be. Any other things you can think of which might be women-centric? What else do women want?
Freedom of expression.
Okay.
A seat on the table.
Okay, a seat on the table. Freedom of expression. All right, a seat on the table.
To
And
not
why are
be
you
seen
saying
through the
seat on the
gender
table
lens.
is a problem? Whenever we are saying something is women-centric, it means it's possibly a tough thing right now for women, right? What was the next one you said?
To not be seen through the gender lens, perhaps.
Not being seen through gender lens.
Navigate microaggressions that happen at work.
Navigate. Navigate microaggression.
Flexible working hours.
Flexi. Flexi hours. Okay. There might be more. Anyone wants to ask details on any of these scenarios they may not have understood or wants to discuss?
Equal opportunities, Ruchi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Equal opportunities.
Yeah, equal pay,
Respect of
equal
them.
opportunity. Yeah, equal pay, equal opportunity. Right? So whoever mentioned this, navigate micro expression, I think Mansi mentioned it. Would you like to just elaborate if some of the audience may want to understand this a little better?
Sure, Rishi. For example, if someone makes certain comments based on my gender, as a generic comment, like, women are some stereotypical kind of things, like women generally don't work late or things like that. So even if they're saying it about someone else, you still feel that pinch because they are addressing your gender in particular. And so you think, when I'm not in the room, what are they actually talking? So these small microaggressions are small things which don't really affect you in a big way, but over time when they accumulate, they tend to affect your mental health when you're in the work.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for that example. And one of the things there is, again, as we talk about it in future slides or as we move on, we can have the victim mindset or we can have the ownership mindset. Part of it is also, they may not be saying about us, but part of it is also, is this something becoming a cultural narrative in this org? And then it is a challenge. And then it's not about me, then it's not about somebody else, then it's about all of the gender. Are these biases sitting there? Okay. Anyone wants to elaborate on not be seen through gender lens? What do you mean by that? Can you share an example?
So even as I said it, right, I thought maybe that's not the right sort of thing to ask for, because there are times when you wish people would wear the gender lens because contexts and conditions are so different for men and women. But on the other hand, to, I think, not be expected to succeed according to men's standards of success,
Mhm.
because the workplace has been governed by what men believe they're capable of or what
Mhm.
men believe is success.
Right.
Right. So it's a thin line of saying, do I want to be seen as a woman? Do I not want to be judged as a woman?
Mhm.
I think it's a balance. And that's where the equity or inclusivity conversation actually comes in.
Thank you very much. Sometimes we want to be recognized as women because we need some special or slightly support in the scenario. Sometimes we don't want that conversation because we
Hmm.
want to focus on equality. Do you see from the other person's perspective, we might sound like a confused lot,
Hmm.
okay? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We are just sharing perspectives here. Try to also wear the lens of the other gender and see this. Okay, and how can we make this balance? That's the whole
Yeah.
point of this dialogue. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to share thoughts on any of these words? Okay. So here is some background context, right? What do employees want at work? This is something which is 2015. All right. And all of these are global studies. So none of these charts may represent your country. None of these charts may represent this region in particular. They might be very representative of West, where such surveys are very done very prominently. But still, for you to get a sense on 2015, what is interesting in that chart for you? And this is not women, this is any employee kind of. And this chart, this survey said it was done on around 18,000 people in the US and Europe. Okay, so what is it that is interesting or noticeable here?
So can I take a shot?
Sure, please.
So yeah, I mean, it's like it's the expectation mismatch or the supply demand mismatch, wherein the executives think that we are a great workplace. For example, 67% of them talk about how like they are helping the employees with the supplemental training programs.
Right.
As if you see, the majority of what people want is actually competitive compensation. It is not seen as, that's only 30% of the executives who recognize that.
The reason I brought this one was because somewhere around this time, organizations started believing that they need to have their own internal culture first. Because it was happening in 1990s also, but it wasn't as much of a culture. It started happening in 2000, and then around this time when they started seeing that the expectations of the execs is very different from the expectations of the ground reality of the employees, and the employees were not talking as openly at that time. These days, in our current context, people are talking a lot more openly. The culture of having surveys within your organization so that you have a health index of your organization, expectation mismatch understood, that started to happen very regularly in all large organizations, right? But even then, in 2021, this was an independent survey done, right? And see here, still there was discrepancy, okay? So the point that I'm trying to make it, it's not very easy to have that in sync. It's not just about what women want. It's also about what the employees want, but the leaders who are running the organization are looking at the organization with a slightly different lens. Just have that perspective. It's important. Many of you are leaders in your organizations. So ensure that there is a culture of taking feedback. Ensure that there is a culture of bottom-up communication, as somebody asked, either through surveys or anonymous feedback or through HR conversations, so that there is some sync in these expectations. Another way to look at the chart is a more detailed one here, right? If you see, this is 2021.
Ruchi,
Yeah.
I have a question on the, on the feedback part. This is something that I have been experiencing. So I recently took a break. I mean, not so recent, really, about a year back. And now that I'm back and a year into my workforce, I still feel that, am I, in the right place to even ask and have that, equal pay conversation today? Because, it's, I mean, I have taken a break, and it was not like a regular circumstance break, the traditional maternity or anything. It was a voluntary break that I had taken. So, is it that, that will still be weighed and seen that, am I a consistent performer that the team can bank on? Or is this the right time to have the conversation? So often that really stops me to even give that feedback, that I feel that I'm not equally recognized for the work I'm doing.
So let's talk about that when we talk about breaks in the next, in the case study. A
Okay,
very
sure.
good example, and these stories are very important. I've just made a note and we'll add it to the discussion there. Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. So this is another way to look at what employees want. And the point I want to make over here, actually, first of all, anybody finds this anything interesting in this before I make my point?
Ongoing flexibility, basically, people do not want to, get back to the offices yet.
And that has emerged as a huge topic global. Huge topic. It's almost like that whole thing, right? Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Children have started, education has become different, jobs have become, this has become a huge conversation topic. But I'll ask you, what defines what employees want? Like, what are the characteristics, or what are the context in which employees want something? For example, if I want equal pay, is it true in China? Is it true in Korea? Is it true in US, in India? So what are the different things that define what an employee wants? Anyone?
Your nature of job,
The
your
type
work,
of your job, what else?
your work location,
The work location, what else?
the timings of your work, right? Basically, not the nature, the timing. Like sometimes it's
Okay.
a shift system versus the
Sure.
good.
What else?
The family needs where you are at the point of time, for
Phase
example.
of life.
Phase
Of life.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What else?
What type of household you're coming from? How much can you give yourself to your work?
Okay, that's a very good way of looking at it. Depends on what I have seen and what support I have. Right? That's where equity comes in. That's where the word equity comes in. But one of the things that somehow is these days not being talked about is that a lot of our wants are driven by our culture. The culture we come from, the country we come from, the region we come from. This used to be very prominent in the 90s, started to get diluted in the early 2000s. And now, since it's a global economy, especially the people who are here, many of them are very visible to the good, are either part of some MNC or understand how the global world works. And the employees who are in that section, who are interacting at a global level, their wants are very different. But still, there are lots of employees who are not at that. They don't have visibility of the global world, and their wants are very different. They are still in the, I want job security, I want, pension, I want the benefit of this, which seems like, in a Maslow's hierarchy of wants of employees, it seems like these are the base of it. But we have to be mindful that many of us who are in the knowledge industry, we are driven a lot by the global context, not necessarily our local cultural or country context, and which is fair. Which is fair because we are part of that global workforce. There is another way to look at what we want, and that is the generations are wanting different things. And that has become hard for the organization now, right? Genders definitely have different support needs, and pandemic has changed as you see the ongoing flexibility has come on top. So let's look at generational needs, right? In the same organization, you will have all profiles, and they all have slightly different needs. If you see at the bottom, I have marked. But ask yourself, depending on what you are you a Gen Z, are you a millennial? And again, these years are primarily Western years. In India, generally, they say the same thing may apply, but about 8 years later, 8 years delayed. But we all believe we also have Gen Z. they will be coming into the workforce. We all believe the people who are joining us now are millennials or Gen Z. So my question to you is, ask yourself, are some of my wants driven by where I am in the generation? And it will be. The reason it's important to understand this is because you all will grow up to be leaders in these organizations, right, at some point. And then you have to see, how do I manage the needs of all the generations? It's not a straightforward thing. And the same generation in a different country may have a slightly different one. And then you have MNCs, which are looking at having global policies, right? If they are going to have globally common policies, how are they going to recognize or appreciate the fact that in different regions, people may have slightly different asks or priorities? It's a very common thing that in Saudi, Friday is the day off, not Sunday, right? Because that's how their culture is. That's a day of holiday, but there can be many other aspects which, as a leader, many of you who are either in leadership position or are going to become leaders, you have to consider when you're trying to see what the employees are. Can somebody tell me what are very Indian wants? Like employees in India want it. May not be something which is very common in other countries. Can anybody think of anything?
Rewards and recognition.
We like gifts. We like gifts. We like gifts which our parents can see and feel proud of. It's been our culture. We showcase a little bit. We showcase trophies. And not to say it's not there in other countries, but it is something which is kind of in our culture. Anything else? What else do Indians want?
Some kind of global exposure.
So, yeah, where we, especially if we are in MNC, especially if we are working in an organization that has counterparts in other countries, we like to experience other cultures. We may still want to come back here, but we like, and we want our organizations to understand. But in another country, the same, let's say it's an MNC in India, this might be the need of employees. It may not be the need of employees in some other country. So I want you all to these are all aspects for you to think that, how does an organization then manage all of these different wants? This is from the CCL Study Center for Creative Leadership. This is in November 2019. I took it November 2019 because this was pre-pandemic. And most studies now are diluted by the pandemic effect. So I took this, and this had a very clear, it was a study of women leaders across many countries, across many geographies, across many businesses and verticals. And so again, what is interesting in this? Can anybody tell me anything insightful here?
Looking for resources from outside to be successful in these leadership roles.
They know that they need support. And they're calling it out. It's not like we have started talking about post-pandemic, right? There's another interesting insight here. Anyone else?
They value like these flexibility and support more than compensatory benefit.
Women have been valuing and asking for flexibility pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, flexibility is a big buzzword. But women have had this want and need pre-pandemic because our life goes through phases where we need to support nurturing and caregiving roles. And then let's also look at this part. Do you think women who are, pardon, go ahead.
Sorry, so the point which I wanted to make was help organizations find their calling. I think that's very, very important, that it's not just a job. We are investing time and expecting some kind of fulfillment, which is beyond
very important, insightful. Now, many of us say we want a seat at the table, right? Women should be able to get a seat at the table. at a macro level, that is not a primary driver of the brain. At a macro level, impact, value, calling, purpose, that is the primary driver of the brain. So then, why is the success parameter all about, am I getting a seat at the table?
Because Ruchi, I think with the seat at the table, what I meant was, and I brought that point up, what I meant was to be a part of the decision making arm, right? And that in a way also opens doors for you to contribute
Very
better.
important. So your point is not so much about growing to reach there. Your point is, I should be at the table so that then I can help level the field.
Yeah,
Right?
and this needs to happen at each level so that I can grow into the next, having created that impact.
Sure. Shweta, I have a request of you. Are you there, Mansi or Shweta?
Yes, Ruchi, I'm here.
Mansi, can you just take this conversation for 2 minutes? There's somebody at the door and they are asked, I think it might be a delivery. So
Sure,
can
sure.
you take the whole point here is, how are women different from men? That's the discussion here. Just take this forward. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Sure, sure. Yeah, adding to that point, there was one example at my workplace actually where there's one manager I know from another team who is very particular about only having men in his team. And because of that decision, he's even like refused to take women interns. And one thing that I did notice is their team has a very good person who's very invested in training people. Like he finds it really good doing that. So because of that decision of his, and because there's not a woman at that place, there are other women who are not benefiting from, things that can happen. So that was one thing that I just thought about when Ruchi was discussing this. Coming to the other points here, I think Gen Z and millennials have different wants. I think we've seen a lot of reels actually, where as millennials, I am a millennial, and we were very conservative about, like we did want to pursue our passions, but I feel we were still a bit conservative when it came to financial security. But Gen Z, they are a bit more open and they're chasing their passions a bit more, which is very inspiring. Yeah, Ruchi. I was just talking about the difference between Gen Z and millennials and how I've noticed
Actually,
it.
Yeah, on the previous slide, there was a very interesting, point that I noticed, that Gen Z, in fact, is looking for stability. That was actually coming in as a surprise.
I wouldn't believe it. I'll be frank. I wouldn't believe it. I think they want hopping. I took this is from a reputed site. So I still question it. But the reason they are saying this, and we will remember, Gen Z has, in India, they have not started coming to work as yet, right? Or they are going to start coming. The reason is, Gen Z is so driven by visual stimulation that they are experiencing in gadgets. Many of them are going through mental health problems. And that's going to be a pandemic. Basically, that's one of the predictions and concern, right? That it's going to be like a pandemic. And hence, they will look for stability. But I'll be very frank, we don't know. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, but it's insightful. Again, the reason I have any of these context setting slides is because all of you will become leaders. See the world in the lens of these studies and have a context on, what would you like if you had freedom in your organization? How would you make it a level playing field? How would you be mindful of what different generations want? But it is also a challenge. Managing gender support in organization is not all straightforward. It does need deep thinking in organizational culture and getting rid of deep patriarchal simple statements to actually make it a, as you say, safe space and not having microaggression kind of environment. I know you were talking about Gen Z when I came back. Needs of single versus married women are different. Same age?
Noteworthy to me because I remember as a 23-year-old when I joined my first workplace, my needs were very much similar to a guy.
Exactly.
To be honest, I did not like. I remember there was this person who could not like after having her kid, she could not work in shifts, and
Mhm.
she asked for an exception, and somehow it was not given, like which was very shameful. She was a
Mhm.
talented engineer, and so
Mhm.
she left. And to be honest, I hate to admit it, I did not understand like the need of it, or and
Mm.
now I do, and I feel that that's such a huge thing. Like women who are single, especially coming out in their 20s, they have no clue of how it goes on when we are with their
Absolutely. I read a very interesting article yesterday. I'm going to share it at the end in this group. It is from Livemint only. It's an Indian article. I can share it now. You all can save it. But it brings in a lot of question of the problems of equity, handling equity from a women's perspective. I'm single. I chose to be single, right? And then when there is work at home or office, the ladies who are married and have children are allowed to go home and it's not counted against them. But because I'm single, somehow I am supposed to carry their burden, right? This is a big dialogue. Where is equity now, right? So there are no straight answers. It's a lot about empathy. It's a lot about, but as a group, when we are in a women-centric forum, this chart at the bottom is very important. And that's where the point that somebody made, getting it at the seat at the table becomes important. Yes, individually, we may not be aspiring for a seat at the table. I never did. I am very happy doing freelancing work, but I understand that if you're not at the having a seat at the table, you are not building the culture that would support the future generation. And I think that is why there should be some of us who want the seat at the table. It should come from inside. And there should be some of us who are driven primarily by calling and do not care about seat at the table. There will be some of us who will be married. There'll be some of us who are still single. All of this has to be okay. The whole point of embracing equity is that everything is okay. But as an organization, how are we supporting those unique scenarios? So this finishes all of the discussion in a global context. This is very Indian. Read these quotes. And none of this should come to you as a shock. It's more a summarization. A very large study was done by LinkedIn and Business India today, and the word started getting used, flexidus. Okay, flexidus. That working women just want to quit. They're getting tired of the excessive load they have experienced during the pandemic. If you're working, your work is there, your children want food, you are a caregiver, everything is happening in the house and you're the primary giver. So this is alarming. And even in a global context, this is alarming. In Indian context, although we are still a primarily male workforce, but we have significant number of women in knowledge industries. See, we as a country have always had women working in the field. So we can never say that we were primarily a male workforce. Our women have always worked in the fields. They have worked in, karigari and hastakala and all of the creative and artwork. They have all worked in small enterprises at home. So they've all been working. Anyone who says we are a third world country and our women are not working enough doesn't understand how women in a third world country work. But in the knowledge industry, in the education, in the educated, received education, got and then working, yeah, we were not as ahead. But we are rising there. And yet, so that's why this flexidus is a very, very alarming concern for that scenario. This finishes some context setting, and the work purpose of this context setting was for you're all going to be leaders. Try to see micro pictures also. Try to see macro pictures also. Global, slice it in different ways. See the conflicts of an organization also. Here is the summary of the data that we collected. And this is the responses we got from 45 respondents. Anything insightful in this anyone wants to capture? Anything insightful?
Equality and support are the two bigger drivers.
Equality and support. But Flexi asks, okay, managers invested in my growth is not really a gender issue, right? It's a issue for everyone. Appraisal based on quality of work. It hits women, especially when they are not focused on giving face time in office. Right? Equal pay for equal work is a little bit of it's quite a bit of a gender issue, though there are other scenarios also. Flexible hours post-pandemic has become everybody's issue, but it is a very big issue for women. Now, we can always say we should not put women in this bucket. Men should be supporting women at home. And then, that's a whole different dimension. At this point, our focus is what can women do to get what they want. There are always stories about, men should be participating more at work, they should be sharing more work. All of that is good. But it's right now, in the current context, that's not where I am driving the conversation. Those stories are also true. This was the non-negotiable chart. Yes, somebody had a comment to make?
Yeah, hi, this is Swati. So on the previous slide, I just wanted to point out that we talk about or gender equality, etc. But being yourself, being woman or being a man, in maybe it's in decision making, it's leadership style, it's the way you present, letting that, because what I experience or see, okay, we all are, or at least I can talk about myself, that trying to be like, okay, this is the set standard, and that is a man's set standard.
Yes.
This is how it should, and that, I mean, why? So that
very good question. And I think we have got to a point where we are enough in the workforce that we position it that. There is a term that is getting used. It's not about the male and men and the women. It's about having a feminine org culture, having a masculine org culture, and having an alpha male org culture. Why is it that working late nights should be treated as, high value? Why? Because that's what has been happening. Right? But there's another flip side to it, right? A lot of success comes because of effort. Yes, somebody else?
No, I'm just nodding. Yeah.
So you have a very valid point. Why should that be a badge of honor? Right? And that is where the seat at the table that somebody mentioned is important to bring that context. Right? That's not a badge of honor. For somebody, it might be a badge of honor. For somebody else, not. As an organization, we should not drive ourselves as treating it as a badge of honor. We should be driven by outcomes. We should be driven by impact. We should be driven by long-term commitments and long-term contribution of the employee. It's like you go from grade 1 to grade 12. In grade 7, you did very badly in geography. And you otherwise used to be in top 5. But in grade 7, you came 19th in class. That doesn't define you. Women will go through maternity like that. You will have a career of 30. These days, people will have career of 30, 40, 50 years. Maternity will define 2.5 years of that maybe. And it's okay if there are some dips there. It's not just that the men have to start thinking differently. Women also have to start thinking differently. The micro versus the macro view. But you have a very valid point that those badges of honor should be questioned. Does that give you some perspective?
Yes. Thank you, Ruchi.
So this was the list of non-negotiables that people. And again, flexibility is top. Respect and trust were again almost at top. And I'm speaking with a bias, but if I had given the same survey to men, I would have expected that promotions and raises would have been at the highest. Post-pandemic, flexibility is becoming a need of everyone. Because we have lived a certain lifestyle. We were forced to live a certain lifestyle, and many of us, although it had its own problems, many of us are relishing that aspect of the lifestyle also. Anything interesting in this chart? Anybody observes?
Hi, this is Shweta here.
Yeah.
I think what I found very interesting and very alarming was the fact that respect and trust had to be called out by women in terms of this is something we are asking for. Okay, and that is a shame on the workplaces. That we are basically saying we are not being respected at our workplaces. People don't trust us to deliver.
Yeah.
Right. It is part of it is probably a perception issue that people think women you can treat women whatever way you want, or women will not be as good as men. But it's part of it is perception issue, but part of it is just the simple fact that we need to ask for respect and trust. I think that was appalling for me.
Yeah. The fact that it's not the basic base of the Maslow's hierarchy and should not have been something we had to call out. Right? I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. And the fact is, it shows that we are expecting, some of us are experiencing toxic work cultures, or are experiencing work cultures where we feel that, I could get better respect. You ask for something which you're not getting all the time, right? Or which kills your back. And you say, you know what, I'll walk off at this point. And for me, the insightful thing here was, interesting thing was, equal pay for equal work actually did not have such higher chart. And that was an interesting thing for me, which means that in our mind, we will, if we get flexibility from an organization, if we get respect from an organization, if we get support through our phases of life, we will be okay getting a little less pay. And again, in a way,
I think most of the organizations are doing that, right, Ruchi? Whenever a woman or anybody proposes a flexibility or a reduced work hours, right? The first thing the firm proposes or gives you back is reduced fee. Like nobody is accounting for what you deliver, nobody is accounting for your value of services or your kind of experience or what you bring to the table, right? It is just the hours you work equivalent to the pay you get, right? So when we are even approaching that, we already know that that's already on the card. There's nothing there that you can go negotiate, right? It's become the non-negotiable factor already and accepted by everyone.
That is exactly why Embrace Equity theme of International Women's Day is so important, because every woman's language in the organization has to change to equity. And men also should change. And I know I have seen very, very, visionary men and leaders who understand this aspect and support it like just supporting another colleague. It doesn't have a gender bias there. I have seen that also. It's just that the percentage of that is definitely not as much as it should be. I completely agree with you. I'm going to skip the stories part here because of the time that I just saw on the clock. So what we will do in the next 40 minutes, which is how, is we will talk about 6 stories, okay? And each of these are short experiences that any of us may experience. I would like you to call out what is the real challenge, okay? Are there similar cases that you have seen or you have personally experienced, or how far can this go? What does the protagonist want, okay? And more than what she wants, how can she own it? Part of it is what the organization culture we want to do, but part of it is what can the protagonist do, okay? And how can the overall situation be better? So this is what we will do. All the people whose names start with A to M can take 1, and all the people whose names start from N to Z can take 2. I don't know if it will help, but I see everybody's name starting from, no, but we do have Neha, Pradeepa, Rutuja. Okay, we have people. Yeah, we do have a slip. read it. And the people who are taking situation 2 will have to read situation 1 for context. But part of the reason why I write this and ask people to read it instead of just, sharing the story. There is enough neuroscience study which says all of us who have grown up reading, when we read, visuals happen in our mind. Okay. And if you have experienced something like this, the feeling you have is very different than if somebody was telling you the story. So that's why I write this. Go ahead.
On the situation 1.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing that Reena could do on the situation 1 is actually discuss this with the manager, where, like, what are the points that she's struggling with and how how she can actually sort of navigate this situation. I can personally relate to it because I actually did this. When I joined my organization this year, like I was initially struggling a lot. So, and it was driving me paranoid. But when I actually spoke to my manager that these are the points where I'm struggling at, and can you like try to lessen my load so that I'm able to make sense of things. So actually it helped, and I was able to be better.
And part of the word stress is our brain is stressed when it has not been able to verbalize its problem, when it has not been able to verbalize its emotion, when it has not been able to explicitly, that's why journaling helps, talking helps, calling out your emotion helps. Forget whether anything else gets solved or not. The fact that you're able to talk reduces your stress. What else? What else can happen?
And in this also, like like Arya Par situation, like if you know that the other person is not understanding of that situation, so then also is this the right work environment for you?
Yeah.
So this is how you can also test it for yourself. And like in my case, my manager understood and things went for the better. I was also more relieved then that he understands me. So yeah, I mean,
but you also know that either you're in a position to try and create that culture, or you're in a position which means you will be able to nudge, grow, especially if you're in a semi-leadership or leadership kind of role. Or that hey, this place won't work for me.
Right.
And yes, there's always a fear of losing your job, especially when you come back from a break, whether it is maternity or the other example somebody said who had to take a personal time off. There's always a fear you don't want to go into a new environment too quickly because you are navigating too much newness in your life anyway. So you don't want to add another new thing, which is a new job. Familiarity helps you. So, but if you don't have the dialogue, you don't know where you stand. If you don't have the dialogue, you do not reduce your stress, because unless you talk, unless you spell it out, the brain will not rest. What about situation 2? What else can be done? What can Reena do? What can the organization do?
Though my name starts from S, if you don't mind, because
Sure,
I relate
absolutely.
to that.
It's just so that we can assimilate.
I know.
Right.
So what so from my experience, because I went through the similar situation and I didn't handle it well, I kept it to myself. But what, especially after maternity break, what she can do is understand the situation has changed, because ultimately there is a child at home and there is a work. So the balance, you can't be the top performer, or you can be, but you have to understand your boundaries. And for some time, those boundaries are important so that you can sustain in the long run.
If what you have just said is probably a very hard thing for a woman who is looking for equality in the workplace, who is running like steam for growing, for taking a seat at the table, you are telling her, please slow down a little bit for some time.
Because I have burnt out in that
Yes.
and I have
Mm.
realized it.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm actually saying we have to understand this thing. Local minima in maths, if most of you, if you have understood maths, right, you draw a chart. It has local minima and local. In this area, there is a minima. In this area, there is a maxima. Local minima and maxima does not define you in a 30-year run. But if you let that local minima really drain you completely, your motivation and aspirations get compromised and the toxicity remains for many, many years. Understand that your body needs rest. Understand that the body is trying to figure out this whole hormonal change. Understand that feeding the baby, many of us are these days using, feeding equipments, and that's fine because, we have ways of dealing with it. But the point is prioritize correctly. Just because I want to be back at work, is this something I want to prioritize? It should be a personal choice, not a pressure. Some of you will say, yeah, I want to prioritize. I want to still run and be the top of the performance shoes. You are okay. There might be somebody else who'll say, I'm okay being a little, relaxed this year because my body is healing. All these cramps are there. The backache is still there. Just sitting kind of fatigues me out. There is this extra weight. It's okay. That's equity. And a local minima at that point. It's important to have the mindset that this local minima does not define you. Any other
Ruchi, I
perspectives?
would disagree a little bit with
Sure, Shweta,
what
go
you
ahead,
said,
go
right?
ahead. That's
And I'm going
exactly
to
why we are saying perspective. Absolutely, Shweta, go ahead.
Yeah. So 15 years ago, when I had my baby and went back to work, I remember my boss telling me very apologetically, saying, we are so glad to have you back. Honestly, we didn't even think you'd come back because we thought you'd just leave. And I went back on the 91st day. Those days it used to be 3 months of maternity leave.
Yeah.
Right. And then saying, while you were away, performance appraisals happened. And I'm so sorry, you are only getting a 5%.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't tell you the sense of gratitude I was overwhelmed with to say, oh my God, I was away and I was pregnant and you've still given me a raise. I'm so grateful. And I'm sure the manager went away feeling really thrilled with himself. And I, of course, was in this, bubble. In hindsight, when I look back at it, Ruchi, I cringe at the gratitude I felt. And I never want women to do that. And I'll tell you why. I believe the primary function of a species is to procreate, right? I'm stepping away from the work environment here. Whether we like it or not, when you're in your 30s, that urge for motherhood will kick in and you will, most of the time end up giving in and doing it because that's what your DNA has determined for you.
Okay, sure.
Now, a woman who's done this and come back to work is in fact adding to the diversity of a place, right? So sure, she may not be able to work 12-hour days, but imagine a human being who has created life, is nurturing it at home and has come back to work. The kind of value she will add to you beyond your, defined deliverables in terms of a voice of diversity, in terms of, everything else, right? Therefore, I think it's bullshit for us to say, just because I don't conform to your standards of delivery, it's okay for me to not get a top performer grade this time. I think that's a paradigm we need to redefine.
So I think the paradigm is not that. The word you used was grateful. Instead of grateful, if you had shaken his hand and said, Pradeep, Manoj, whoever, Pradeep, I think we are creating the right kind of culture for long-term loyalty to the organization. I hope the organization appreciates what I will bring to the table.
Absolutely, that's what happened. I stayed for 6 years after that, right?
Absolutely. You cringe because you had the victim mindset. And you're realizing that you should not have had the victim mindset. You should have the owner mindset. I have come back to give you diversity. A woman who comes back after maternity or a break is hungry for work in most cases. Because our work also defines us. Just like men are defined by their work, we are also defined by our work. It's just that we have other dimensions also of our definition. This is not the only thing that consumes us. Do you understand the difference between the owner mindset and the victim mindset?
Yeah.
So if, however, the manager came and told you, you had already worked for 8 months before you went for maternity, and hence, however, you were not there for 4 months of your maternity. Devi, Devi and Divya, could you mute? I think there is some noise. Thank you so much. You have got an average rating, but in those 9 months before you went, you had solid impact to the bottom line, right? If that is the case, it's not equitable. It's not equitable, and you have to ask for it. You have to say, it is my responsibility to try to change this culture. Do not accept it. If, however, before going for the maternity, the 9 months had been average for you, you have to also start thinking like the org, and they had been average for you, then it's okay if you get an average. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, these things can translate into people quitting, right? People being put on PIP. There are scenarios when people return from maternity and the next performance cycle, they are put on PIP. As an equitable organization, at least give somebody 6 to 8 months to ramp back up. Put them on PIP in the next cycle after, if you really have to look for performance. If a guy broke his leg and was out for 6 months, came back, would you put him on PIP 3 months later, or would you say, this guy needs to ramp up? That's where we have to fight back. We don't have to accept. Reena has to own the situation. We want something, and we have to also build that culture by pushing back, by nudging. Many organizations are becoming cognizant of this also.
Yeah.
Right? Here are some of the things we may have either captured already in one-liner. These are some of the tips I would give. No, there is no book for this. This is partly by experience. This is partly by being a leader in a large MNC, which was a highly alpha male organization, Samsung, when I was there, and also being a leader in very American companies. Some of the experiences, but acknowledge your gap. You have lost time. You need to catch up. It's okay to sit in a meeting and say, Pradeep, I think I was not there when that launch happened. I know I shouldn't be taking the time of the whole meeting, but once we leave this meeting, can you bring me up to speed? Okay, do not be embarrassed of acknowledging that. It's okay. Or, for example, you enter the office and some new projects have come, or some new clients have come, and you have no idea. You're like, oh my God, so much has happened. While having coffee with your colleagues, say, guys, the last 4 months have been so vibrant. We've got 3 new clients and I need your support to ramp up. Acknowledge the gap and speak out the help. Your brain will be less stressed. The brain is more stressed when it is dealing with, what will I do? What will I do? How will I cope up? If you acknowledge it, the stress reduces. And avoid the victim line. Why are they doing this to me?
Ruchi,
Go ahead.
Sorry, if I can butt in, I have a question. So regarding my experience of when I went back to work, it was a long break for me, and I also changed industry.
Okay, sure.
And after my probation, when I got the offer letter with what I'm going to get as a compensation, I cried for 3 days. So to be judged because of the break that you took more than your experience or your qualification was a setback for me. So how can we really...
Could you repeat that last 2 lines? There was a blip. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said that it took me a lot of time to absorb the fact that my gap, my break was given more importance over my experience or my expertise or my qualifications. Just because I took a break, that liberty of giving me probably a lower compensation was taken, what I felt. And I communicated that. So what can we women who go back to work after a break do to tell them that we haven't really been out there doing nothing? We've been probably
So-
giving life, like someone here said, we've
So
given.
one of the important things is in the break, remember, when you are on break, it's good to be on, you are giving priority to your family. One of the things many people culturally, Rutuja, you can talk and then I will give response to this. Go ahead. You have your hand raised.
Yeah, when you said acknowledge your gap, is it just a knowledge gap or acknowledging your ambition and asking them to sit like be back is very difficult. Just talking from my context, right?
Mhm.
I've just started my maternity break,
Mhm.
and I was expected to be promoted like this cycle, which didn't
Mhm.
happen.
Mhm.
Now let's say when I go back,
Mhm.
acknowledging that there is a gap and I will be put behind again, like I will have to build the same rapport in a new team
Mhm.
with the same rigor, and maybe that would mean again 2 years back from, like I will have to start all over again.
Mhm. Mhm.
That acknowledgement itself is so difficult.
Mhm.
I don't know I
know,
will
it
ever
is
be
very
able to
difficult.
accept it.
It is very, very difficult, Rutuja. And for our generation, which has been driven primarily by the marks we got in every class, our brains are not wired this way. Whereas
It
the newer gen
constantly
that
keeps
is
on
coming,
giving feeling, yeah, this is my like second maternity break.
yeah,
First only it feels like, okay, even though I have been high performer,
uh-huh.
I'm already behind, like
Mhm.
and behind in the sense the same people who joined with me or my
Rutuja, that is the victim language. Why do you call yourself behind? You have created life. 10 years from now, people who you were with in class might be either in similar positions or one level higher than you, right? Or you may have caught up. Local minimas will happen, Rutuja. But the victim language actually impacts you even more in the long run. It takes longer for you to come out of that dip. Are you getting the point? I understand it's very natural to feel that, I just lost what was right there for me. That's why any of these lines here in this slide may not be easy to do. Any of these lines.
But then
Assume
am I
nothing
not
is.
the victim
Pardon?
here?
Pardon?
Matlab, am I not the victim here? I'm actually behind, and maybe second break is putting me behind further.
Uh-huh. There's a difference in being victimized versus telling your brain I am a victim. When you're being victimized, it is a situation. When you keep telling your brain repeatedly that you're a victim, the brain's capacity to be non-victim reduces. Your frustrations increase even more. Your management of stress, those faculties get compromised. So that's why I'm saying avoid the language. Fight your battle. Garner support. Go to the HR, document it before you're going on your maternity leave. When you get pregnant, and I remember this case study of a lady who worked with me throughout her maternity. She said, I am seeing a promotion come up. I don't want to tell my manager that I'm pregnant. They'll compromise me. What should I do? But I also want to tell them because I want to have a little bit of flexibility in, working from home. I said, first have a dialogue with your manager, very clearly asking, how am I looking for the promotion? I know it's in the works. Are there gaps that you see with me? Are there some specific things that I should be working on so that, I'm ready for the promotion in the next cycle? And everything of that dialogue documented. After that, announce your pregnancy. You have to be able to handle the situation. But the fact is, organizations will still sometimes make you a victim. Rutuja, am I able to avoid the language versus being victimized part for you?
Yeah, I think to certain extent, not completely, but maybe yes.
Yeah, it is a challenge. You are giving the race to something else. That phase of your life is bringing something into this world. Your brain is changing, your body is changing. You're becoming so multi-dimensional, right? You're going to bring that back. But let us say you come back and you were expecting after you're back, you will get a promotion. Okay. That also dialogue has to happen. Once you come back, 2 months into it, talk to your manager, clarify the expectations. Have a dialogue. Clarify the expectations. How does it look like? I know I've already been in this role for 3.5 years, and generally this band is 4 years. I have been following up on all the feedback prior to the maternity and have been making sure that I meet all the expectations of the next level. I'm actually doing some of the tasks which are of the next level. Highlight those tasks which are already something you're doing from the next level, right? That dialogue. The manager and the organization also needs to know that you are keeping a tap on that. What happens is, a lot of time people think they are, and it's a very subconscious thing. They've just had a baby, they're busy with that, it's okay, they won't quit. Right?
Yeah.
Right? When you're back, you're back. It should be a dialogue like you had if you didn't have a baby. Right? Avoid the self-guilt. Somebody said, right? I felt grateful. That is self-guilt. Avoid the self-guilt. Oh, I'm not there for this late night meeting. Oh, tell yourself, it's okay. Prioritization. I have to prioritize. Reduce the mopping and whining language. Do it with a coach. Do it with a friend. It's okay. But don't do it in the organization. Because at a subconscious level, that is then treated as, oh, this is how women are. Right? As Manasi said, that whole microaggression. As if, sweeping statements will be made. Oh, yeah, she started crying in that meeting. That's how women are. So, in a way, you are the champion of your gender, right? Each one of us is. So, yes, call out logically what you don't agree with. Call out where you think the organization might be compromising you, but don't be in a mopping and whining mode. Do that if you feel like mopping and whining. Find good friends, find a coach. Do it because you need it for your relieving your stress. The ramp up. Some of us want a fast ramp up because we have a feeling we are losing out. Some of us want a gradual ramp up because the body, the hormone, the whole situation is addressed. It's okay to explicitly have that dialogue with your manager. It's a local minima. You can even say, Pradeep, I'm back. I know I will be having a very, focused priority at home. And that is number one. There is no doubt about that. But I'm all geared up and charged to ramp up, Pradeep. So throw things at my way. And if I think it's too much for me, I'll call it out. But, my only request is that I will leave at 6:30 every day. Call out what kind of ramp up you want. Tell them you're back. Clarify the expectation. I am in this lead role, and I know we have late night calls almost every day of the week. I'd like to know if it is, if we can do a round robin in terms of who leads these meetings, because that's going to work well with the current priority I have. I want to make sure we do great as a team, and I own this area, but I want to clarify this expectation. Another thing you can do is don't just, this is very important. It's not a fight, but we need to talk. We cannot just let it go because then equity will never build up. It will never build up. In a way, we are trying to sensitize the organization. And empathy is not straightforward. Okay, a couple of other ones. This is a little manipulative, but I have seen it add value. So for example, your manager gives you, your back, and you get the 5% raise, right? Do a subtle culture comment appreciating it. I think we are building the right kind of inclusive culture. I like being here, and I would love to lead over here. Partly when you praise somebody, they want to do more of it. And it's true for the organization also. It is true for the leader also. So do subtle culture comments. Do not do loud complaints. Let us say you came back and your manager says, we understand, Nidhi, you will not be in a position to travel now. And you can say, no, I am okay traveling. I cannot commit to long travel, but 2 nights, 1 night as a sales job, I am comfortable as long as I have a heads up. If I don't have a heads up, I think it may be a little last minute for me to prepare, but I'm open, Raman, I'm open to travel. And I think we should build an inclusive culture where we understand, somebody who's come back and ask them what kind of role they want so that we are supporting them in their journey. That's more equitable. So again, it's a subtle culture comment. Appreciation, subtle comments get you more than stopping and leaving the organization. Prioritizing. And when I use the word prioritize, I would say it's not even your baby. The first thing you have to prioritize is your health, mental and physical. When you are mentally fine, you will race up and catch up what you have lost faster than you can imagine. When you're physically fine, a few days of long hours is not going to be a big deal. So when I use the word prioritize, this is not about prioritizing only what task I do. It's about, am I prioritizing my healing and recovery? You need a little bit of me time. You need a little time with your friends to de-stress. That's your health. Some of us, pivot by choice. Some of us pivot by circumstances. Some of us feel like I have been pushed into this role. My God, I was having such a front-end visible role, and now that I'm back, that role has been given to somebody else, and I'm getting this kind of role which I really don't want to do, right? When you are being pushed into pivoting after coming back from maternity, partly think like the organization. What is the organization trying to do? If the organization is trying to accommodate you, clearly have a dialogue and say, you have put me in this project management role. I think there are areas I will grow, I will learn. I might even have a gradual ramp up, but you know what? Customer facing role is where I thrive. Raman, I really want to be back there. Can we work towards how we can get back there in the next 6 months? Or consciously call out the pivot. I know of people who have had a child and they consciously talked to their manager and said, I want that role, at least for the next 1 year. I will do excellent in that role, but I want that role because it gives me a little flexibility. It's okay. It's okay to ask for a pivot at that point. You may continue on that pivot. You may want to come back. It's okay. All of this is part of equity. But think like the org, because you all will become leaders. And when you become leaders, you have to think like, how hard is this sometimes for the org to deal with this? 2 more stories, people whose name starts with A to M, up situation 3 and N to Z situation 4. I think considering the time, we will only be able to do 4 stories instead of 6, but that's okay. So what would you do? What are some of the ways to own the situation? What are some of the ways to have equitable behavior in the organization and dialogues related to equity?
Hi, this is Shweta here.
Yes.
So I think I have definitely been in situation 4.
Uh-huh.
And I think in addition to all of it, I was also in a new role, which was a new global role that I got into. And because of that, that meetings would be invariably between 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. Okay. And I'll be like, what happens if I miss out? Right. And so on. So this is what I did. Okay? I actually spoke to my boss, okay, and told him about the fact that I would really like to attend these meetings, but the fact is the time at which these meetings happen, they clash with the time I need to be there for my family, right? Which means I may not be able to attend all of them. I could probably attend 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 meetings, but I don't really want to miss out on what happens there. So what can we do? Okay, so I just left the ball in his court, and then he came up with the idea, why don't we record those meetings for you?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can catch up on what is happening, right? So and then he also said, but some meetings we may not be able to record. In those cases, I will do an MOM and give you a debrief. Okay. And I thought that was such a fabulous way of him creating an inclusive culture for me, which I also very subtly, in a very nice culture comment, I also acknowledged at that point in time.
Yes.
Right. So I also told him that thank you for doing that. And I would actually remind him before those meetings come in, which I will not be able to join. I would just remind him, can you please record this meeting? Or I would tell his assistant that, can you make sure recording of the meeting happens, right? And I just needed to maybe prompt him like twice. Okay. And it just became second nature to him, right? So any meeting I would miss, he would record it for me. He would, or if he cannot record, he will, give me a download that all of this is what happened. And during that conversation, right, when he's giving me the download, or if I've caught up on recording, the next one-on-one when I have with my boss, I would actually go back and refer to that meeting to acknowledge that I saw that recording, or this is what I think, right? So I would put my thoughts forward over there, so that he felt like I really wanted to be there in those meetings. Because I could not participate, I'm still giving him ideas, right? Or I am giving him my thought. So I am working. So this was important for me, and I'm showing it to him through my actions and through my words, right? When he's doing the work, I'm also supporting him there, right? And this actually changed the dynamic between me and my boss, in the way that I no longer became a subordinate. I basically was like an equal for him in a lot of these conversations, right? So before he would even talk to his superiors, he would actually run things past me to get my views and my perspectives, which he could then, which if I was not there in the meeting, he would present and give me acknowledgement. Right.
So the biggest thing that you conveyed, Shweta, was that I'm serious, I'm back at the table, I'm committed. This is not, and you weren't in a moping and whining mode.
Yes.
Why are they doing this to me? Right? And there will be many other solutions. I've had this challenge. What I used to do is every week on Monday, I would decide which one I can delegate, which one I can't delegate. In some meetings, visibility is very, very important. Influence is very, very important. Those meetings I won't delegate. The others, I will actually nurture my juniors and say, guys, Sandeep, please take this meeting up. I obviously need time at home with the family, but I think it's also a great way for you to grow and listen on these meetings. If you really need something from me for the meeting, I will be checking the chat. I'm growing my people. I'm extremely openly acknowledging that I need that time also. So there will be many solutions, different, but there are, and you can own it in different. You have given a very, very inspiring and very, very, great perspective here, Shweta. Anyone else wants to share? Anyone else?
Situation 3 is again about delegating, like what parts I can delegate and prioritize. That, after a point, I could.
Absolutely. See, FOMO is very strong once you are back. Because you're catching up. We are in a strong FOMO mode. Oh, I'll miss out this, I'll miss out this. So really table it out. What is it for me to let go and what is it that I should not? What else? Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was thought on like prioritizing and more like again similar to how Shweta said, like, you know, taking a download from others as well, and maybe doing, okay, I missed this, but the next morning I make sure to catch up and make sure that whoever has noted down those things for me, I make use of it.
Yeah. And sometimes if somebody else has done that for you, also credit them in your one-on-one. You know, mutual credits and mutual appreciation of team members goes a long way in building your reputation in the organization. In situation 3, there is another very interesting way it could have, I can question it. Priya knew that the launch is 24 hours away, right? She also knew that her son has a project work. She could have either done the project work earlier with her son, or she could have requested her husband or spouse or partner or parent or somebody else. I have a launch in 24 hours. Launches are unpredictable. I don't think I can be home to help Farhan or whoever, my son. Mama, please can you come today and make sure that his project gets done? You have to call out for support. You have to foresee those situations. Or another strategy could be where Priya clearly calls out and says, guys, I need to take a break of two hours. I will be back again at 11 o'clock in the night. But I need to be with him between 7:30 and 9:30 to finish this. For him, it's almost like a launch. For my son, this is almost like a launch. But I will be back online at 10 p.m. and then be back. You're showing commitment, you're showing prioritization, you're showing equity, you're also showing that you're serious about what is at home. You're not diluting that also. Any of these strategies will work. But just saying, how can I talk about it? Why is this happening to me? Why don't they understand? Will not help.
Hi, this is Swati again. I know we are at time.
Yeah, I just want to show the summary slide now. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, just one question here. When you said that speak that yes, my son has a project of this. Yeah. So does it, when we say these things or showcase that their priorities, family, etc., do we put ourselves down a bit? Or
I'd like to hear from others before I give you my
perceived like that, because that's my fear always.
Yeah. Anyone, do you think we get perceived? How do we get perceived? Anyone? What do you think?
I speak about it to, like, there is a function at the school and I have to go. And this,
I am very explicit. Vulnerability is never a weakness. Knowing that I am vulnerable, but I will still keep to my commitment is the biggest strength. Yes, if you have a toxic culture or if you have a non-equitable culture, somebody might choose it against you. But, and again, don't do it in a mopping way or a guilt way. Don't be, oh God, I'm sorry, I really need to be out. No, it should be an ask. Sanjeev, my son's PTM is on Thursday, but I know we have an important review with the senior management on that day. There are really just 3 options. One, that I don't go to my son's PTM, but this year he has not done well in multiple subjects. I need to be there. It's high priority for him. 2 option is that we change the date of the meeting, but I know that, you know, VP is traveling after Friday, so we can't move it. The 3rd option is, can we move the time? Deal with it like you are doing project management. Right? Deal with it like you're doing project management. And there is no harm in sharing about your personal life at work as long as it's not invasive, it's not too much, it's not too much of sharing. And different countries are a little culturally different about this. Even now in US, people don't talk about it as much. But I know in India, I have had very healthy relationships in my organization. And I've explicitly said, my daughter is down with, fever. I can't attend this meeting. Or there was a review which was set up at 8:30 in the morning. No, sir, 8 o'clock in the morning. right? And my son had just recovered from fever. And I personally wanted to drop him because I wanted to meet the teacher and hand the medicines to her. I said, I can't do an 8 a.m. meeting today. I can do it tomorrow. Either we can move the meeting to 9. I will be in PAC at 9 or 9:30, or can we do it tomorrow? It's okay. You're just describing a situation. If your scooter broke down and you got late, wouldn't you describe the situation? Would you describe the situation or not? Right?
Yeah.
This is just a situation. The self-guilt is driven by us. Don't be guilty. It's a situation. That's all.
Okay.
It's a personal situation. That's all.
Got it.
Yeah. I would like to summarize. I'm skipping these 2 stories, just leaving them for you to read it. But we are not in a position to do discussion, just in the interest of time. These are also things we struggle with. And some of the common themes of the previous slides apply here also. I can take 1 or 2 comments from some people, and then we will do the next slide of summary of best tips. 1 or 2 comments at most.
If you could address the situation 6, I honestly don't know how it will go down.
And this happens, right? And actually, you might have been walking with those people 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but now that you have more, when you're more conscious of your time management, you don't want to spend that time because you want to be home a certain time, right? So after lunch, you say, I was in this situation when my second child came. I used to walk around with all my colleagues and have all of that. I was part of the clique. But when my second child came, I was mindful of every half hour, right? I had 2 little mini minions at home who needed attention. So what I can tell you what I saw people do, what has worked. First, I would like others. Do you have any suggestion on how cliques can be managed? Anyone? So I can give you some tips. One of the things is you have to take the bull by the horn. You have to call the elephant in the room. In the meeting, when summer starts, as we discussed yesterday, we have agreed that we are going to delay the release of client Z. Anita is like, when did we discuss? When did we agree? And Pradeep is like, oh, yesterday when we were walking, right? Oh, you were not there. Pradeep, it's lovely. It's great that you all have the time to have a nice post-lunch walk. My request to you is, since this decision making is collaborative, it's okay for you all to discuss, great. And I will ask you all for giving me a feedback, but please, let's keep the decision to the meeting. All out. The language is very important. Getting it? Another thing is, if you have buddy relationship with any one of them, take a summary from them. Third option, instead of going for the full walk, go do a short round and come back. Fourth option, don't do it every day, every third day, do it so that that whole social feeling is there. Okay? Any of these options can help you navigate cliques better than just feeling isolated.
While calling out, there could be another option while you were speaking was asking them if they have anything to discuss like this, then ask them to document it at the same time so that even if
and again, do it without mopping and whining. Say, wow, guys, you actually used your walk to make a decision. Okay, guys, can I get a summary, please? Period. Whenever you appreciate somebody, okay, it's called killing with kindness. the chances are they will do it for you. Okay. All right. Here is a summary of some of the learnings from the discussions and maybe something. Plan your support at home. If you have a project that your son needs to finish, your daughter needs to finish, and you are on a critical path, explicitly call it out to your spouse, and you will be doing it vice versa. Call it out to your mom, call it out to your support system. Please plan that support at home. It has direct bearing on our brains in office. Women's brains are slightly neurologically different from men's brain. Men's brain are able to compartmentalize. We are not able to do it as well, primarily because we are nurturers. When we are sitting in a meeting, we will think of our son's project. Most men will not do that. Their brains are not wired like that. Okay, so please plan your support at home. But don't just accept when you're left out, when you are fighting to be up late. Do not accept. Use the right language to question it. Become good at time management. Block slots of what you're going to do. Many of us live randomly for very long. When you want to utilize your time, especially after children, and be able to do justice to family and work, please become good at time management. Adopt it like a skill. Sometimes stretch. Be there in some late night meetings. Do not skip all of them. Make your choice. Where is visibility important? Where is influence important? Where is growth important? But sometimes ask for a slot that works for you. And sometimes all the different strategies that Shweta mentioned, record, MOM, take a feedback, all of that. But one of the key things is do not stretch for everything. If you're going to not be there in any one of them, then your commitment to work will be questioned. Become assertive in your communication. Learn to say no. As I said, right? My son needs a tooth extraction and it's clashing with the quarterly review. His pain is too much and the doctor is only available at 3 p.m. today. Sudhir, we should look at options. I know I need to be, and call out your importance. I know I need to be there in the meeting because I understand numbers. But what are our options? And one option could be that you can join by phone. One option could be that you move from 3 to 4. One option could be that you ask your spouse that is planning support at home to go with your son. Learn to own your catch-up. Shweta gave a great example of that. If you're missing a meeting, if you're missing a dialogue, you own the responsibility of catching up. Watch the video, read the mom, ask the questions, insist on getting a summary of meetings that you have missed. Anyway, as a culture in an organization, moms should be documented, unless it's a very highly confidential, something you don't want to write on paper. Delegate consciously. Things and use the language that you're trying to grow your team. Yes, I also need the break, but I also want Sandeep to grow. Own your catch-up. Make the team aware when you're not going to be able. It's okay to talk about that. Call out your priorities. It's okay to say that my son's tooth is really, really hurting. I need it gone. Call out your priority even at home, to your spouse, to your mother-in-law. Next Wednesday and Thursday, I will have long days. I will need your support because I will not be here to manage Preeti and Rahul. Both places call out your priorities. Explicitly ask to spouse is very, very important. Start having that direct conversation. Do not assume. Think like they are. They want you to grow, but they also don't want to compromise the outcomes. Think like, if I am the leader, what would I have done? If you're getting tired, if you're stretching yourself too much, rest if you must. One of the requests I have of all of you, if you have to pivot, quit, it's okay. If you have mental or physical health issues, quit, it's okay. Don't quit because you are tired. Ask for a break. It's very important that we as a generation, create role models for the generations to come. All of these dialogues and all of these examples with the mindset that we, the gender, has come from an unequitable space. We have situations which are not normally seen by another part of the work population. We need to have dialogues in the office about how additional support we need. That's exactly the point of embracing equity. These dialogues, these actions is how you will raise it for yourself as well as for all the other in terms of gender. You know, there are other examples of equity, but I'm talking in terms of gender equity. These dialogues, these actions, calling out the vulnerability and yet expecting support, all of these, you are giving yourself additional support and you're expecting the organization to give you additional support so that you can shine, and you are going to shine and it's going to show in the outcome of the organization. That's exactly what's the theme of this year's International Women's Day. Embrace equity. I hope all of you got value and you got, this is a good sheet. You can take screenshots, especially if you're in HR space. These are all the different ways you can think of changing organizational practices to get gender equity in your workplace. Thank you, Lenin, for giving me this opportunity. Any questions or last set of thoughts? Any key takeaways that you would like to share with the group?
Ruchi, this is Devi. I asked you a question in the beginning. I know we are on time. If you can actually help address that for a few seconds.
Sure. Could you repeat that?
So how do we communicate about what the junior members are looking for?
So I should go back to the chat and look at all of the points. Thank you so much. So by being extremely assertive and crisp and clear. I understand that the organization needs to cut on budget. Again, when you have that dialogue with your senior, remember you are also the organization. Don't talk like a junior. Okay? I am the organization. I understand that our org needs to do budget cuts and we are very tight on budgets. And as a result, 2 members of the team have been moved to another project. But the bulk load in the team is very high, Naveen. I can sense from people in the one-on-one, I see demoralization. I feel the team is very demoralized because they feel the project is not important. That's why the people were moved to another project. As a leader, it's important for me to be able to give them a message which resonates with them. Can we have this dialogue? Do you see the language?
Yes, Ruchi. Yeah.
It's very important to craft these languages. These are a leader's language, not a reporter's language.
Sure, Ruchi. I think that helps a lot to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any last key thoughts or key takeaways or any other last comments?
I had a takeaway, and also something that I had done partially, but it's more evident when you've said it explicitly, is like one thing is balancing or prioritizing, delegating the work side of things. But equally important is the home side of things, in a way that we should also train ourselves that we're not expected to do everything at home. So equal delegation should happen at home as well. And this could also...
And it has to be explicit.
Yes.
Explicit dialogue. It's just not a kuchi-ku dialogue. Oh, you know what? Once the babies come, you really have to support me. That's not explicit. Okay, Pratish, please, my request to you is laundry is your department now. Okay, and getting the vegetables and ensuring that the fridge is stacked. We can chat about the needs of the fridge, what is needed, but getting it and stocking the fridge, can you please take ownership of that? Explicit
And similar is the also to some extent is the school part as well, right? I mean,
Yes.
Many times the schools sort of expect you to do things last minute as a parent.
Yeah.
And you have to set their like, which I have done with at some points, is like, please don't expect me to go to the market and buy something at 7 p.m. in the evening.
And that note can go, maybe not in this tone, maybe in a slightly different tone. We would like to, my son came at 5 p.m. and asking for something. I was back only at 7. My request to the school is to be mindful of parents' situation and not give such requests last minute, or to give at least 24-hour to 40-hour heads up. Whatever, the language can be better, but you're right. You're prioritizing. You're saying that's not a priority. I don't want to run and get you this hot glue as well as these 3 crepe papers and these 2 bubble wraps. And sometimes your child is going to be angry with you because all the other mothers are doing it. What are you going to do then? Then it's a whole different area of dialogue. But you need to make your child also mindful and aware. Bacha, your mama is at home, it is at office throughout the day. As soon as you get home, if you need something for a project, message me, so that on the way back I can get it for you or Papa can get it for you. You also need to have that dialogue.
Right.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, everyone. I wish you all, it's just a symbolic thing, a day, International Women's Day, but the theme is, this particular theme has long-lasting repercussions and impact. Let us all be the champion.
Thank you, Ruchi. That was really insightful, and all the little exercises really helped. If I could ask everyone to just turn on their camera, we'll take a quick photo.
I will just stop the share and come on.
Rituja, Ayushi, Divya, if you can see you girls do it, would be nice.
I have switched on my camera.
Yeah, I can do it. Just not in a very good position, but I'll do it. But it was an excellent session, Ruchi. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all for making time. And Shweta and Mansi, once you have the recording, share it with me. I want to share it with a few people who have personally written to me that they couldn't join. Obviously, we don't want to put it on a public forum. I have called Samsung and Alpha Male Organization. Please do not put this in a public forum, but we can put it in our chat groups or something like that, or share it with people who ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. I've taken a picture. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ruchi. Lovely conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ruchi.
Thanks a lot,
Bye.
Ruchi.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And thank you, Lena, for this platform. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ayushi. We look forward to seeing you soon in our other events as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Mansi.
Hi, Shweta. How are you?
I'm okay, yes. So just, yeah, he just woke up exactly when
I'll
the
stop
call
the recording. I'll just stop the recording.
Yeah. I mean,